Great. Well, welcome back. We're going to keep this great forum going. I think we're going to end on a high note. That's just what I perceive here. So we have a very distinguished guest, Merissa Hamilton. And let me tell you a little bit about Merissa. She's a person who values, small business. She actually she used to spend time in Arizona here with her grandparents as a child. Shortly after graduation, she made Arizona a permanent home. So she's not one of those people that doesn't know Arizona. She's a person with business professional experience, 19 years of leadership in supply chain, food service, retail, grocery, technology. So she knows a lot about business, and that's who we need in elected office. She led national committees to create data standards, transforming food safety and improving public health, with a strong commitment to helping her community. Her work for over a decade has focused on helping girls in crisis, pregnancies, women and their children in domestic violence, and helping those experiencing homelessness find permanency. So she's a person who's an advocate both in the social realm but also in the business realm. So we should welcome her with a round of applause for her to give us her time, because she's investing in you. So please help me welcome her to the stage. So like the other segments, we're going to keep this conversational and informative. And I'm going to ask you a straightforward question that's on the minds of a lot of people. When you become mayor, how will you positively impact the lives of business owners who are struggling and thinking about the current environment and what will life be like during the rebound?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, especially for the fact that Phoenix was recently named. We went from being the 20th best city for small businesses to being ranked 59th in 1 year. And so that's not just because of our current climate with COVID and what's happened with that. That is from the policies that we've had as a city that have really impacted our small businesses. And so my policy has always been that every business, every job, and every person is essential. And that's why I've led in both the business world and in the social issues to making sure that no one is left behind. And so the difference I think that we'll see in the city of Phoenix is that with my background in business, I come from a long line of small business owners. My dad was a janitor. He owned his own small cleaning company. I used to clean the local mall as a child, and my stepdad was a contractor. My grandfather owned a butcher shop. And so I have that small business bone in my body, where I have so much respect and understanding that every single business is someone's dream. And oftentimes someone's pouring all of their blood, sweat, and tears into making that become true and fruitful. And so I think Phoenix needs to take a different approach and have respect for the fact that these business owners are investing into our city. They're investing into their employees, and they're really investing into dreams in our city. And so that means taking a wildly different approach versus what we see today. Today, the approach is how much can we tax? How often can we tax? And I think that's very disrespectful to our business community.
Wow, Merissa. I don't even live here. You got my vote. That's impactful. You know, what you said was very touching. When you look at what and how America is formed, and when you look at the fact that we are a nation of immigrants, and I'm quite sure you traveled around the world, and through my experience through that travel, you have the individual, you have the family. And when you go around, whether it's Asia, Africa, Latin America, Europe, anywhere in the world, there are people with their small businesses, right? And they may not be rich, but that small business is a means of survival.
Absolutely.
it instills culture and opportunity. And when I look around the world, that's in everyone's DNA. Small business.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the land of opportunity, and we can actually help it flourish with policies and the right leadership, or we could take it down with the opposite of both. So I think it's extremely important that we support that, and I think through your personal experience with business and the data analytics and regulation and empowering business is extremely important. So what are some other things that you plan to do in understanding and making that connection, that business is just not profit, but is actually empowering the individual families and creating an opportunity for generational wealth?
Yeah, there's actually a couple of stories that of situations I've encountered that have really changed my outlook on how important it is that you have good policies at the local level. One, I have close family friends in Morocco, and when I went there, I was taking a look as to how they manage everything. And you know, it's a poorer country. There's a lot of people that do not have the economic opportunity that we have here, and you can see that there's a great divide in their economic classes. But when I was going around to one of their bazaars, and I spoke to this woman that her child spoke English, she didn't. And I just asked him about she was just selling little things that she had made. And I just asked him about, it's so great that you're here with your mom and you guys have your small business. And he said, well, my mom said that we can be anything we want if we're able to just have the opportunity to be able to sell something to someone else and help them. And then here locally, I was I had taken an Uber ride, like we all do. But there's this one particular driver that he really touched me, and he was a barber from New Mexico. He had over 20 years of experience, very successful, but he wanted to move to Arizona because we have a better economic climate. And I said, well, why are you driving Uber? And he said, oh, I can't afford the licensing cost. It's $1,000, and so I'm driving so I can raise the money for that. And I just thought, wow, how is it that we are, for something as a barber, we don't have the economic opportunity of a front door? And so I think that's one thing that, especially during this crisis right now, so many businesses have been destroyed by the policies that we've had in our city. And what we're seeing now is these big, huge corporate out-of-state interests coming in. So we've wiped out our local small businesses. We're bringing in these big corporate interests. And I think instead a different approach needs to be is creating that front door for economic opportunity for our people here locally, especially in our minority communities. That is going to be the biggest defining factor for them to be able to be successful.
Yeah, it sounds like there's this race politically as well as analyzing the business climate. It's really binary in terms of opportunity versus obstacles.
Absolutely.
Opportunity versus opposition, right? And I think the right leadership and the right policies make it possible to sustain those opportunities. You know, it's always mind-boggling when I look at, okay, there's this $1,000 fee. Creating these huge hurdles, right, and barriers. Like, kudos to this gentleman that's creative, has the extra time to actually drive, create money, or should say generate money in order to pay this fee. But there's a lot of other people that may not have that time, that additional resource.
They might not have a vehicle.
Exactly, right? So I see those things as obstacles and opposition opposed to creating the opportunity. Yes. We should be fast tracking, you know, people like that want a license, because why? Because they will create a business, economic activity.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's a win-win for the city. The most heartbreaking part of all of this is that our city now has the highest tax on Uber and Lyft in the nation at the airport. And so the policies that we have, they have hit our small businesses so incredibly hard. But we also have a major public safety crisis now too, which has destabilized our system for our small businesses. There's a man that opened up a business called Mr. Links in the beginning of September, and within 2 weeks he was shot in front of his business and died. And so it's a matter of, first we need to make sure that we have public safety, because if you don't have safety, you can't have stability. And then we need to create stability in the way that we're operating when it comes to COVID. And so in my experience, creating those data standards nationally, we had to keep in mind the big, huge corporation, making sure that the standards were going to work for them, but more importantly, the brand new entrepreneur that's making that product, we joke, in his bathtub. We needed to make sure that those standards were reasonable for that person to be able to still enter the marketplace. And rather than creating so much instability in the marketplace with the approach to COVID, I think that the first thing that we should have done is brought that task force together, created a win-win model for businesses to know exactly what they needed to do to keep themselves and their customers safe, so that we can keep our economy moving safely along. Because these starts and stops have hurt the ability for businesses to make the decision to stay open, because to plan. It's created uncertainty for their employees, but more so, it's caused other business owners here locally to say, you know what, I don't want to risk it because I don't know what they're going to do to me next. And when you look at what's happening right now, even within this campaign, we have a lot of out-of-state money interests coming into Phoenix, and that's because of the ideal place that we have within the supply chain. We are the hub of the supply chain on the West Coast because of how we're uniquely located next to Mexico and the West Coast shores. Well, especially with the vision that we have for bringing manufacturing back home, Phoenix is ideally positioned where we can become the manufacturing hub of the United States. You see all these cities on the West Coast on fire, and we need to take the lead. We need to take the lead for our nation to become the most innovative city, so that we can have, we should never have a situation where any city is brought to its knees because we can't manufacture PPE here at home. That's just not acceptable. And so it's going to take a different type of leadership, someone that has that experience to find win-win solutions and motivate our small businesses and empower them so that they can be successful again.
Well, let me put you on the spot here. There's a term that I've heard continuously in the media, continuously out of the mouths of elected officials, and I want to see what your take is on it. When it comes down to essential and non-essential, right? If I'm an employee and someone told me that I'm not essential, that's devastating.
Absolutely.
But I understand, the reasons why some politicians try to create those two groups. What is your view on essential versus non-essential?
I think that the only time essential and non-essential should be used is when you're talking about government bureaucracy. And as someone that works within the realm of social issues and solving social challenges, and I'm also a survivor of domestic violence, anyone hearing those words, you're non-essential, that plays more than just something that you just brushed off. If you are someone that's struggling, if you're someone in social isolation, for example, if you are someone that has struggled with substance abuse, that's going to impact you, and it's going to play a role in that. And that's the other part of this story that I think that has been ignored. And we've had a huge increase in substance abuse. We've had a huge increase in suicides. We've had a huge increase in drownings of adults here in Phoenix. We've had a 44% increase in homicides, and we've had a 180% increase in domestic violence. And so these policies and these words, they have more of an impact than simply saying, well, we're going to, we need to protect against a virus. The outcomes that we now face in Phoenix from those decisions are long-term consequences. They're long-term consequences from a homelessness position, from a mental health position, but also from an economic position. Because when you fall and you're in that position where you've worked really hard to get your life back together, and you fall, it's a long road to get back on track. And when violence escalates within your community, it's not something you just put back in the box where you say, okay, we have a vaccine, everyone stop being violent, we're all good now. You can't put that back in the box. It's something long-term that you have to deal with. And so I think that those words, non-essential, hit too close to home for many people that were in devastating circumstances. And I personally thought it was just disgusting and absolutely unacceptable.
I agree. Everyone's essential. And when you look at the way I view business is family.
Absolutely.
I spent more time, when I was in corporate America, I spent more time with people at work, especially, the long hours during projects or whatever was going on at the time. So business is family, right? It may not be biological, but business is family. And a lot of businesses as a family is struggling during this crisis and figuring out ways to rebound. But if they can't open, if they can't plan the way you talked about, that's not only putting pressure on the business, but it's breaking down the family of that business and breaking down individuals' families, right? You talked about so many social ills, but another social ill that you're passionate about is addressing the homelessness.
Yes.
If people can't go to work, if people can't also plan their lives and take care of their responsibilities, many times that will lead to not only substance abuse, domestic violence, unsafe environments, but also homelessness.
Yes. And Phoenix is, we are a city of hard workers. And so we actually have a significant population of those experiencing homelessness that are working and employed. And so, but we have a system in place where it's difficult for them to get to work on time. Our public transportation, we invested heavily into light rail, and our buses took a back seat, and that created challenges for people being able to get to work on time. And so I think that we've approached many things for the special interest and not for what's not in the light of what's best for our community as a whole. And so there's so many little details to address. And a good example is even from the restaurant perspective. Imagine being a restaurant owner. You have stocked up for St. Patty's Day, which is a tremendous amount of money for restaurants to stock up on. And then a couple of hours before your opening day for St. Patty's Day, your entire restaurant is shut down without any notice. And so now you have all of this food. You might have borrowed money to be able to pay for it. You have nowhere for it to go because the supply chain can't cross into one side or the other. And then you're so excited because our president and Congress worked together to get that loan money in here and our COVID money to help businesses. And then the response from your mayor is you're only going to get $1 million for all restaurants in the entire city, which is $347 per restaurant. And so we have mismanaged every single piece of this pandemic here in Phoenix, and now it's basically been the biggest power grab away from small businesses and handing it over to corporate America where they can finance any situation. And it's so devastating to our local economy.
Isn't the best stimulus is opening up and
Absolutely.
doing it safely?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I managed through the supply chain during SARS and H1N1, and that's probably one of the biggest losses long-term in my perspective, is we've lost that opportunity for innovation. During each one of those crises, we had the industries pulled together, every industry pulled together, and they outserved and out-innovated. And that's the reason why we were able to manage this crisis, this pandemic, so effectively. We should have taken this opportunity to now out-innovate and out-serve. And so we've lost all that innovation because everyone was forced to just shut down as the only option. And so we could have innovated in our cleaning materials, in the processes, in the operations. There's so many opportunities, and that would have protected us from viruses long-term. And so we've lost that as a country.
Gotcha. So again, when you're mayor, what are the top chief executive objectives that you would focus on to help businesses rebound?
So first, it's focusing on public safety. Our gang violence has tripled here in Phoenix over the summer. And so we need to put a stop to that. We need to have safe neighborhoods for our businesses to be able to successfully operate. And then at the same time, I think that we need to shore up our small businesses that have been struggling, and find a way to be able to help them. We have a lot of money left over from COVID that we can find a way to empower them with rather than keep giving it out to corporations.
Many of them have, capital needs to be able
Yes.
to reopen.
Yes.
Because if you need inventory, you need supplies and so forth, and you might need that little boost to be able to carry payroll.
Correct.
For maybe a 30-day period.
Yep.
Right?
And then I think the third thing, and this has to happen very quickly. In fact, this is what I'm going to do from the day that it's announced that I've won. We're not waiting until I'm mayor to do this, is that we're going to create task force to identify the exact standards that businesses need to be able to stay open safely. And then we need to have that negotiation with our governor and with our county to say, let's come together and make good decisions for Arizona.
So wait a minute. Let's back that up for a second. Yes, that was a great response. But I think I have to drill down just to make sure I heard what I heard. Are you saying that you're going to be an elected official that wants to hear from the people and to actually address real concerns and be open to hearing real solutions from the people and not actually come with your own agenda and sell it to the people? You're going to try to do both and make sure that the people are involved in part of the solution?
So I don't believe in shoving models down the public's throat or small businesses' throat. They know their businesses best. And so as I have been an advocate for the last 10 years in social issues and an advocate in the business world for the last 2 decades, we're going to take the same approach. It's been successful. We have solved problems not just nationally, but internationally. And so when you bring the experts together and you find the win-win scenarios, you are stronger as a city.
Wow, that's awesome. I'm just not used to hearing politicians saying that let's reach out to the business community and not just hear about their problems, but make them part of the solution, because, wow, you're actually taking a family approach to this.
Absolutely. We are a family as a community. And our businesses, they want to innovate. They want to protect their businesses. They want to protect their customers. And so they already have great ideas. I've been hearing them even before we started the campaign, when I was just trying to help our businesses to be able to stay afloat just as an advocate. They have amazing ideas. And we can pull together and find the best solutions and empower everyone at the same time. And that's really what we need, is that leadership that's going to bring typical opposing sides together and then find the best of the best from all of those viewpoints.
Wow. What time is it? I have to do a time check. Because if I keep talking, I don't even live here, I can't vote here, but I might write you a check. I don't know. Because I think, hearing people make sacrifices like you're doing in terms of running for public office, and then hear this transformational thinking to make people part of the solution, opposed to a bureaucratic, coming in with your own agenda, bureaucratic ways to push it down and force people to adopt it and to adapt to your agenda. This is transformational.
Yeah, my view is that when government gets in the way of businesses being successful in serving their customers and serving our people, that at that moment, that's where the bureaucracy has become non-essential. And so we need to take a different approach and modernize and streamline the processes that we have and be crystal clear on the outcomes that we're looking for. I don't think that approach is taken today. Actually, I know it's not, because I used to work at the city council. The question is never answered, what is the outcome we're trying to achieve? And then going backwards and saying, okay, what's specifically the path that we need to take to get to that outcome?
The reason why I smiled when you said that is because, I always thought I was weird in business, because I would start at the end and work backwards. If I want the outcome to be Y, right, I would work backwards to figure out what my X's need to be. So at the end, the X's equal the Y's, right? So I appreciate a business person and an elected official that is really focused on outcomes. Because if you're just focused on a plan that sounds good, that feels good, but doesn't generate results, we've been there and we've done that.
We've had 17 years of that kind of leadership here in Phoenix, and it's led us to nowhere. It's led us on a slower path of the failed cities that we see around the country. And so the way I look at it is every single dollar that is spent in taxes is a dollar that was taken away from that family. It was taken away from that person that could have been invested in new opportunities. And so it is the responsibility of our government at all levels to make sure that we are focused on that spending and the outcomes of how we're going to use that to make sure that we are benefiting everyone. And it's about having those smarter solutions for all. It's not about picking and choosing winners and losers, but it's about creating an environment where everyone can thrive.
That's awesome. You know, and I like the word that you use in terms of take, right? Because I've never given taxes. Has anyone given taxes? It's always take, right?
Yeah.
And it's not an option,
right?
But it sounds like you're a giver, right? And in order to be a giver, you have to have an understanding of what people need.
Absolutely. And I think that when we look at the direction that we have and the choices that we have in our city, we have the opportunity to move forward from this and become the most innovative city in America in Phoenix. We have a great climate. We have a great political climate at the state level and economic climate at the state level. We have some really amazing policies, and we have better policies on the way. Or we can take the path of more bureaucracy, more taxes, more control, instability, government nannying you as adults, as to whether you can be open and how every single process needs to happen when they aren't the experts in that area. We can make the decision that we're going to have a doctor-patient relationship or we're going to have a politician-patient relationship. Those are the decisions that we're making here as a city.
And I love New York, but after talking with you, I might have to buy a second home out here.
Phoenix is beautiful.
I have to get another, bumper sticker. I love Arizona too. This is awesome. Do we have any questions from the audience?
I'll just add, my family's from New York.
Oh, really? Okay.
And from Staten Island. Both my mom and dad are born and raised there.
Awesome.
And so Arizona, though, is my home. It won my heart. I love the East Coast, but once you come here, it's very hard to just leave.
I know. It's rubbing off on me.
The first one is, how would you describe, when you were talking about safety, a question came in, how would you describe the current relationship of the Phoenix Police Department with the Asian American and Hispanic communities? How would you improve that?
So from the Asian American perspective, I think that there's a strong relationship there. I think that it's the Hispanic community that has really been hurt by some of the approaches that have been taken. But I think a part of that has to do with a lack of education by our city as to what policies exist and what's the best way to work on reforming them in a positive way. And that's something I've taken the lead on personally. I've graduated from the Phoenix Police Civilian Academy. I went to the FBI Civilian Academy, and I really learned what are the appropriate ways to make sure that we can have positive reforms, more community policing. And I also chair the Arizona Legislature Subcommittee on Policing, where we brought in Tempe, Tucson, and Goodyear police departments to create a statewide model so that we can have a better relationship between our police and the community and our police.
Wow, thank you. Next question is, how can you as mayor lower the licensing costs while ensuring people follow laws for business?
So a lot of this is at the state level. And some of it's at the county level, but most of it's at the state level. But as we saw this year with the lockdowns, we didn't have a shutdown until the mayor of Phoenix shut down with a great emergency, and that is what pulled our entire state down. And so you are very influential as mayor of the 5th largest city in America and very persuasive. And so it is about taking that leadership and looking at the data, which is my background, and saying if we modify it in this direction, here's the outcomes that we see. We need to make sure, of course, that we have safety first in that, but we need to have an open front door for economic opportunity.
We have quite a few questions for you coming in. Recently, the Black community came out against the city and mayor for the gentrification happening in south side of Phoenix. How will you address this issue and protect minority businesses?
So the city now has a pretty long history of opposing communities, especially you saw it with the Chinese Cultural Center. Now you're seeing it with South Phoenix, where they come up with these big, huge corporate projects and then ram it down the community's throat. And again, that's where I think we need to take a look at a win-win solution. And what is the outcome that we're trying to achieve? If the outcome is that you're trying to kill the small businesses, well, then Phoenix nailed it. They did a great job with the policy that they've identified. But if what we're trying to do is foster innovation, foster a better public transportation system, then what that means is that we need to partner with the community and find a way to move these projects forward in what's beneficial. And especially for South Phoenix, Greg Stanton did a $2.4 million investment into South Phoenix small businesses, but it was given to Promise Arizona and never got to those South Phoenix businesses. And Promise Arizona was just in the media after that for doing voter registration, and then my understanding is Senator Quezada tweeted a year later saying how he was doing ballot harvesting with them. And so I think that we have a crisis of corruption at the city of Phoenix. We're investing in these communities in South Phoenix and West Phoenix, but somehow the money never gets to the community. They never see the beautification that the rest of the city benefits from, and I just think that's wrong.
We have another question from a young business owner. What is going on Jefferson Avenue regarding homeless camps? And as an 18-year-old small business owner, how does my future look in Arizona?
So it's not just the homeless camps at Jefferson that I have a concern over. I'm laughing a little bit because to mitigate against the gyms being locked down, I created a yoga studio outside in my backyard with a tent, and the tent only lasted a month, and the sun just burnt it to shreds. And I thought back to our tent city that we have down in South Phoenix and how horrifying it is that your home is a tent. You don't have a bed that you can call your home at night. And I never realized that you don't even have a tent that can be relied on long term. It's a very sad, desperate situation that we have down there. And so we need to take a much different approach to homelessness. Again, it has to be outcome-based, evidence-based. Our mayor has promised that she's bringing San Francisco's policies here, which is basically taking the worst policies in the nation, and we're seeing how it's exploding homelessness here. And so I want to take an approach where we're looking at those that are suffering from chronic homelessness. A lot of times that has to do with mental health, substance abuse, and other medical issues. We need to take a specific approach to that. We need to take a different approach for those that are working and homeless. That I really love our tiny home model when it comes to our veterans or those that are experiencing PTSD. I think the tiny home model approach is probably long-term going to be much more impactful than a tent city. And so I'd like us to see take a completely different approach, one that encourages upward mobility and one that empowers our homeless community to thrive and to be able to live their greatest good. We won't be able to save everyone because we have some serious medical needs, but I think that our people are generous and they want to look after those that need that medical care. But there's a large portion of our community that we can put in a position that they can thrive. They just need a little bit of help. And I've helped many in our homeless community. I've brought them into my homes. I've helped them to be able to get the education they need or start their small businesses and be able to thrive. And we can do it as a city, but we have to be able to pull everyone together. Everyone that wants to help should be able to have a seat at the table. And Phoenix needs to create a system that is structured in a way that everyone can help in a beneficial manner.
Thank you. That's encouraging. We have a couple of questions coming in on transportation. And the first one is the city of Phoenix has invested quite a bit of money in the light rail. And many homeowners have been speaking out against this regarding the gentrification. Also, there has been quite a bit of crime on the light rail that they're concerned with. How would you address that?
Well, our police department calls it the Crime Express because it's become the most efficient way for someone to go to a store, steal something from them, go jump on the light rail, and then go to the next store and steal again. And so I don't have an opposition to public transportation. I want Phoenix to have the most innovative form of public transportation. But we need a model of public transportation where it grows around our city rather than our city being locked in having to grow around the transportation system. That doesn't make any sense. The light rail is not going to be completed until 2050, and we don't even know how awesome transportation is going to be by then. I was promised Jetsons as a kid. We don't have Jetsons yet. I'm a little disappointed with that. But we're holding back our opportunity for that level of innovation. And so I think we need to take a different approach. We're locked into light rail. That's something that we have. We've already invested heavily in it. But I want to make one thing crystal clear. We have no idea how much light rail is going to cost. When I worked at the city council, I was tracking those numbers line over line, and I found that when Glendale decided they didn't want their line, that money was shifted into the other two lines that at that point we hadn't even broken ground on. And within 3 months, it went from the cost of light rail went up 39%. And so for whatever the best estimates are, if it can go up in 3 months at 39% when we're not in a pandemic, we have no idea how much it's going to cost by 2050. And so we need to be able to have a solution for public transportation that is going to meet the needs of our city, and we're not there yet.
We also have an issue regarding parking for smaller businesses and tourism in downtown Phoenix. Do you have any plans for managing that?
Yeah, absolutely. We need a reprieve from the parking meters being added all weekend long and all evening. We purposely had our parking meters only during the day so that we could have an entertainment district here in downtown Phoenix. We're the 5th largest city, and we do not have an entertainment district. We can call what we have in downtown an entertainment district all day long, but it's just not. Not when you compare what we have in Scottsdale and Gilbert and many of our newer cities that are just flourishing. And so we need to repeal some of the policies that we've created that have destroyed our businesses in downtown Phoenix and make it a thriving environment, especially with all the damage that we've had from the riots and the protests. Downtown Phoenix, we invested heavily in the beautification of it, and now it just looks awful, and we need to fix that.
We have one final question. Tiny homes are expensive because of Phoenix inspecting and zoning. What can you do as mayor about that?
So our entire planning and development process needs to be modernized. We haven't had any major modifications to that process in over 15 years, and we have a lot of innovation that we could implement here. Now, we did bring some of the processes online, but in talking to our developers, it is a nightmare to work through that, and it shouldn't be. My background's technology. These are easy things to solve. But give it to government to make the worst technology solution possible for our planning and development process. And our tiny homes especially, we more than doubled, in some cases tripled the cost of being able to produce this new model of innovation. And Phoenix, we need 163,000 units of housing right now if we want to slow the spread of our homelessness. And our mayor in our city they were so excited about their plan for bringing 50,000 units, but it's going to take a decade. That's not a plan. That's not even mediocrity. That's like an F. We need to make sure that we have plans that are sustainable and effective now. And so we need a model in our planning and development process where we're not causing these developers, especially first-time or small-time developers, to double or triple their budget because of the city of Phoenix. That's absolutely ridiculous. But it's not just a problem here. In my studies, I found that planning and development departments add 24 to 42% in the cost of housing. So if you want to talk about affordability issue, it's at the city. It's the way that we're managing this nationwide. But Phoenix can innovate in this area. And again, we are going to become the most innovative city in America under my watch.
That's all for questions. Thank you.
So do you have any closing remarks for
Sure.
people to think about on November 3rd?
Yes, absolutely. I would say that we have some big choices to make here in the city of Phoenix. We have a mayor and an active council that has they tried to defund the police. It lost by only 1 vote. And so it was a backdoor process to defunding the police. We have the most radical anti-police model from Denver coming to Phoenix, where they didn't pass it because they said it wasn't radical enough. To put it in perspective, Denver is still on fire. They have arson and riots almost every night. And when they open their city council meetings up, their paid protesters went in and took over their city council meetings and drove out the city council members. And so we have a decision to make in Phoenix. This election is really about drawing the line in the sand and saying, are we going to continue to being a city where small business is welcome, where innovation is welcome, where we're the fastest growing city in America, or are we going to become the next failed city of Portland, Detroit, Seattle, San Francisco, taking the worst of the worst and bringing it here? And that's what November 3rd is about.
Gotcha. Well, you know what? I'll make a promise, and I'll have a lot of witnesses, so I have to deliver. When you are mayor, you have one investor in John Burnett.
Wonderful.
I will be back, because then I'll have the trust that we have good leadership
Absolutely.
in Phoenix.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, definitely thanks for your time, and to everyone in person as well as viewing remotely, hopefully you received a lot of valuable information that you can use on November 3rd and beyond that will empower your business, empower your life, empower the lives of your families as well as your employees. So thank you all for participating, and I think this is a great way to end it on a very high note.
Thank you so much, and thank you for all the viewers out there.
Great. Thank you.